Caitlin Clark is being disrespected by WNBA players once more. Caitlin Clark was the driving force behind the success of the three women. In the past, three women received negative publicity and social media acclaim for Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, who has been accused of stealing narratives from other WNBA players, began disparaging her on every platform she could find, and some even created a brand around doing so. They turned that into enormous ESPN contracts that force everyone to watch women's basketball are a result of Caitlin Clark's mean-spirited coverage. She began disparaging her on every platform she could, making her the 9th best guard in the league. Claimed that Caitlin Clark had stolen plot points from other WNBA players, who have practically built a reputation on demeaning her. The three women that become famous due to Caitlin Clark's influence, these three women, who now host ESPN's new all-women's show, gained notoriety during Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise in 2023 and 2024. You may recall that they were doing the NCAA tournament halftime show, post-game show during Caitlin Clark's Elle Duncan, Chana Obom, Kay, and Andrea Carter. These three women previously received praise on social media and terrible announcing for their diversity and mean-spirited coverage of Caitlin Clark WNBA players. Now they are once again disrespecting Caitlin Clark by participating in halftime and post-game shows. These women rose to fame during Caitlin's games, which attracted a lot of interest and spectators. They consequently signed significant new contracts with ESPN. These analysts gained visibility and opportunity as a direct result of Caitlin's performance on the court. It's clear that ESPN used Caitlin Clark's fame to boost the show's ratings. Their ascent would not have been feasible without her influence. Remember how these three women performed during the NCAA tournament halftime show and post-game show during Caitlin Clark's explosive ascent in 2023 and 2024. They got famous thanks to her. They then used that to their advantage to land big contracts at ESPN. The same ladies who made their careers off of Caitlin Clark's success are now in the news for disparaging her on television. Among the hosts, I then made fun of Caitlin's Olympic rejection, implying that it was appropriate. Their intentions and fairness have been called into question because of this approach. A deeper bias is revealed by the disregard for Caitlin's contributions to the sport while utilizing her name for popularity. Given how much Caitlin's influence has contributed to their exposure, their actions feel like a betrayal. This goes beyond simple commentary. It's deliberate rejection of her power. However, the worst of the worst are hosting it. Hosted by Riley Gaines's Cruel Girls, particularly Andrea Carter, who is so conceited that she nicknames Jimmy Pitaro Jimmy. She confidently asserted that the WNBA wasn't against Caitlin Clark backing her exclusion from the Olympic team because she refused to compete, telling a friend, "Well, I'll just call Jimmy and get this straight." Give up her expertise and morals regarding the game in order to promote it. Caitlin Clark is still turned down by the athletes she supports, even though she has pushed for women in the sport and worked to get them more bonuses and assistance. She has even advocated for Black female athletes. She still receives criticism, though this is targeted rejection, not merely rivalry. Her attempts to encourage others have been disregarded, and hostility toward her only intensifies. The message is unambiguous. Some members of the league will never accept her, regardless of what she does. Referees don't give a damn. The players, her peers, despise her. For this reason, I've come to the conclusion that Caitlin Clark has only served as an advocate for these women. She has made an effort to give them additional money and bonuses. They were indifferent. She has publicly advocated for Black female athletes. Don't give a damn. She is still disliked by them. Since you are the reason that things are progressing while they are not, they will not like you. Therefore, it isn't helping that you are coming out and saying all of these things. It was stunning to see that. Caitlin Clark was ranked 9th among guards by her teammates during a discussion about WNBA All-Star voting. Despite being a significant plot point, ESPN's Vibe Check show made no mention of it. This news seems to have been purposefully left out. Ignoring a development of this magnitude implies bias or avoidance. When a website claiming to encourage female athletes is unwilling to stand up for its biggest celebrity, it becomes clear that there is another factor at work. Just another example of targeted behavior is this silence. Star is the key word for the WNBA All-Star Game. I said star, not stars. There is only one star in this league, as you are all aware. On a national level, there are just two players in the dump that are worth discussing: Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham will be the third if her profile keeps growing. However, there are currently just two. Caitlin Clark's disrespectful position as the 9th best guard in the league by WNBA players is the biggest story leading up to the WNBA All-Star Game. How many times did the diversity trio bring this up? WNBA's biggest story. You can guess how many times they brought it up. There has been an alarming amount of prejudice, hatred, and jealousy directed toward Caitlin Clark. The criticism isn't based on her abilities, despite the fact that all she has done is play thrilling, great basketball. It stems from animosity within the media and league. She has been openly disrespected by everyone, including the league and referees, officials, as well as other athletes. She has continuously been singled out rather than hailed as a budding talent. This type of care extends beyond athletics. Intentional and personal. Caitlin Clark has had to cope with everything. Being singled out and subjected to all of this hatred when all she has done is play basketball at a very high level and entertains people. She has only been hit by anger, envy, hostility, and plain old rudeness, aimed for the summit. Kathy Engelberg is indifferent. She gets filthy from the referees. Referees don't give a damn. The players, her peers, despise her. For this reason, I've come to the conclusion that Caitlin Clark has only served as an advocate for these women. She has publicly attempted to obtain additional incentives and funds for them. They were indifferent. She has publicly advocated for Black female athletes. They don't give a damn. She is still disliked by them. Since you are the reason that things are progressing while they are not, they will not like you. Therefore, it isn't helping that you are coming out and saying all of these things. One panelist, Monica McNutt, was given significant job prospects as a result of Caitlin Clark's fame. However, rather than expressing gratitude, she disparaged Caitlin's celebrity on a number of sites. Monica ignored Caitlin's talent and fan interaction when she asserted that her fame is solely due to her race. Such comments attempt to undermine her entire journey rather than merely criticize it. Someone who aided in advancing their careers is being directly attacked. Rather than offering assistance, those who benefited from Caitlin's ascent make patronizing remarks about her. That is disrespectful behavior. After Caitlin placed Monica in a different tax bracket, what did Monica do? Begin disparaging her on all platforms, discussing her fans, reducing her fan base, and undermining her personality by claiming that her fame is all due to her race. Are you aware that's a diss? What would happen if people visited this platform? Someone said to me, "Hey, man, the only reason you're popular is because you're Black." I'll say, thanks. The ESPN program Vibe Check began with a playful tone that included singing and a festive atmosphere, but it lacked all depth and seriousness. There was no mention of Caitlin Clark, the athlete who greatly increased awareness of women's basketball. While the hosts praised themselves on television, the tone of the broadcast seemed to detract from the real sports material. This total lack of discussion seemed deliberate given Caitlin's present prominence and continued public backing. Silence alone isn't enough. It involves purposefully evading the topic. I'm happy to see that ESPN has a lively atmosphere. I'm happy to see that this freshly polished turd is getting good vibes. The women on Vibe Check are celebrating their first episodes. which makes me pleased. Hating guys and checking vibes. Among the hosts is Caitlin Clark was previously accused by Duncan of stealing other players' narratives. This serious accusation undermines Caitlin's merit by implying that her accomplishments unfairly eclipse those of others. Rather than honoring her contributions to the sport, these voices imply that she is not deserving of the attention. Such remarks portray Caitlin as an issue rather than a trailblazer. This framing adds to the poisonous narrative the program covertly supports and is consistent with a broader trend of downplaying her importance. It's programmed targeting, not commentary. Infamously observed a moment of silence in protest to Florida's Parental Rights and Education Act, accusing Caitlin Clark of taking plot points from other WNBA players. She claimed that the act is known as avoid using the word gay. She is therefore not only ugly on the outside, but also terrible on the inside. They needed a sister to accompany Jay Williams, Jay Belez, Seth Greenberg, and Reese Davis. So they shipped off Andrea Carter, who no one knows, and placed her on College Game Day. Men's basketball must be covered by a sister. Additionally, the show disregarded the notion that Caitlin is crucial to her success. Devoted following. Her fans immediately contribute to the WNBA's expansion by going to games, purchasing goods, and interacting on social media. However, the hosts ridiculed and chastised the fan following that increased their own notoriety rather than expressing gratitude. They disregarded the basis of Caitlin's ascent by dismissing her supporters. Another tactic that subtly undermines her by weakening her greatest asset, her relationship with the general public. During the premiere of the show, the disparity was clearly visible. Her fan base, as Caitlin, wouldn't exist without them. The fact that people watch the games is what makes her who she is. Without her fan base attending the games in person, purchasing the merchandise, and watching the games, she would simply be another WNBA player. Chennai and Monica, you can also thank us for your new way of life. Let's go on to the comments. This one asked who is the target audience. Despite the fact that it was the most prominent headline, the hosts never mentioned the WNBA All-Star game, in which Caitlin Clark was ranked 9th. The audience was not given the in-depth analysis or even the most basic coverage they were hoping for. This absence of conversation was not an accident. It showed a conscious editorial decision. Ignoring Caitlin's contentious and noteworthy 9th-place finish essentially put a lid on a significant sports story. It is not neutral for a platform that claims to assist women in sports to be so silent. It's illuminating. The game for WNBA. All-Stars. Star is the key word. I didn't say stars, star. I said, there is only one star in this league, as you are all aware. On a national level, there are just 2 players in the dump that are worth discussing. Angel Ree, Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham will be the 3rd if her profile keeps growing. However, there are currently just 2. The most significant story leading up to the WNBA All-Star Game is that Caitlin Clark is once again being disrespected by WNBA players, who rank her as the league's 9th best guard. How many times did the diversity trio bring this up? WNBA's biggest story. You can guess how many times they brought it up? It's interesting to note that a Chinese wiki, one of the hosts, was forced to apologize after spreading a racial lie about another participant. However, in Caitlin's instance, none of the cast members expressed regret or admitted any involvement in fostering polarizing stories about her. The discrepancy demonstrates that although certain athletes, like Caitlin, are safe, others are vulnerable. Deeper prejudice in the reportage is seen in the double standards. Additionally, Caitlin Clark has come to represent that inequity. This goes beyond simple critique. It's critique disguised as exclusion. In 2013, Elle Duncan was arrested for DUI. I was unaware of that. You know Jalen Rose, Elle Duncan? They would be furious with me at ESPN for saying I wouldn't go get at it. in a pool with a woman who wasn't my wife if I were detained. They were upset with me. For that, I had a response. I understand what you're discussing. I'm not. Come angry. I am not. But you want me to be. Reality TV drama is reflected in the vitriol Caitlin Clark encounters. She is likened to the most attractive girl on a housewife program, whom everyone dislikes. Why? Because people are unable to cope with her exceptional abilities. They target her rather than compete with her. This metaphor emphasizes the resentment and jealousy aimed at her by other members of the league and the press. Her play isn't the source of the animosity. It has to do with her visibility and the attention she attracts. Since the WNBA has essentially established the Real Housewives of the WNBA, this might work out well for the league. And because Caitlin Clark is more gifted, they all despise her. She is the most attractive woman on the Real Housewives show and is married to the wealthiest man that every other woman despises since she has what they desire. This, in my opinion, is a sign that she ought to depart, move on, and establish her own league. It's not even a particularly tough choice, in my opinion. Monica McNutt's suggestion that Caitlin Clark's popularity stems only from her race was one of the most overt personal assaults. Such a reductionist remark erases all of Caitlin's effort, skill, and commitment to the game. There was more to the statement than race. It was a calculated move to undermine her authority. There would have been indignation if someone had stated the opposite about a black athlete. However, it is dismissed when it concerns Caitlin. The selective application of anger by the media is demonstrated by this double standard. What took place? What did Monica do once Caitlin placed her in a different tax category and began disparaging her on every platform she could, talking about her admirers, reducing her fan base, and lowering her personality by claiming that her fame is solely due to her race? Are you aware that's a diss? I would be like, thank you, if someone came on this platform and said, hey man, the only reason you're popular is because you're black. Then I would say, what say you to me? When I got home, hold on man, what do you say? I'm just well-liked because I'm black. How about my insight? What about my own research? What about all the basketball information I've accumulated over the years from watching the sport? Another host brashly asserted that Caitlin's Olympic rejection was justified since she refused to compromise her ethics and expertise for commercial gain. Without any proof, this subtle jab paints her as egotistical or uncooperative. Repeated statements like this on television gradually create the impression that Caitlin is unworthy. The host used her absence as a joke rather than advocating for the league's most popular athlete. This goes beyond sports discourse, is influencing the public perception against her, which is intentional discrimination. She brashly asserted that the WNBA wasn't against Caitlin Clark, frequently justifying the player assaults of Clark on the court and advocating for her exclusion from the Olympic squad due to her reluctance to compromise her game, expertise, and integrity for commercial benefit. Those around her realize she's just incredibly dim. Even though it is the primary driver of the WNBA's increased attendance and viewership. In the show, Caitlin Clark's contributions were completely disregarded. Now analysts who profited from her fan base are criticizing and excluding her. Many spectators turned in only because of Caitlin's involvement in the sport. Thus, they are aware of this irony. Not only is it biased, but it is also betrayal in the sake of branding, when a media product that was created because of her influence deliberately ignores her. Fans of Caitlin Clark, this kind of content was not watched by the old NBA fans. The league suffered as a result of their lack of support. Fans of Angel Reese only engage in online racism, baiting, and conspiracy theories about Caitlin Clark's popularity. Consequently, they will also not be observing. Additionally, followers of Caitlin Clark will not watch 3, 5, or 4 people who have practically built a business off demeaning Caitlin Clark. Therefore, I doubt that anyone watches this. I won't even tell lies unless they do the same thing they're doing with the WB. I believe this show will likely be taken off the air. Before the season ends, Caitlyn is being targeted by ESPN personalities who have a history of adopting political positions on broadcast without facing repercussions. Elle Duncan, for example, once opposed legislation on television without facing any consequences. In the meantime, another Sage Steele, an ESPN personality, received a suspension for voicing political views against Barack Obama. This exposes the network's blatant dishonesty. Despite not adopting political positions, Caitlyn is the one being pulled along. This demonstrates how prejudice exists in both coverage and policy. In 2013, Elle Duncan was arrested for DUI. I was unaware of that. I mean, imagine how angry ESPN would be at me if I were arrested for saying that I wouldn't go, quote, at it in a pool with a lady who wasn't my wife. Jalen Rose, Elle Duncan. They were upset with me. That was my responsibility. You're popular because you're white, I replied. What are you talking about? Not. You may be angry all you want, but I'm not. Accused WNBA player Caitlin Clark of stealing other players' tails. Because of her exceptional basketball skills, she has encountered bigotry, hatred, and jealousy. How many times did they say that Caitlin Clark's devaluation was the basis for her brand? The only reason she's famous is since she's white. Charge Caitlin Clark of stealing other WNBA players' plots. Caitlin Clark has had to cope with being singled out and being struck by all this. Racism is absurd given that all she has done is play basketball for a highly skilled and amusing GOAT, who has essentially built a business from demeaning Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is once again being disrespected by WNBA players, who rank her as the 9th best guard inside the league. Share, like, and subscribe thus. The truth continues to spread.